Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. I've been asked as solicitor to start the meeting with certain formalities. We actually have two meetings tonight. The first is the official reorganization meeting, and then that meeting will adjourn and we'll have a second regular business meeting. There are a few oddities to the way these reorganization meetings work, but we'll work our way through the required legal procedures and get to where we need to go. So we're going to start with a modified presentation of the colors, I believe. So may we please stand for that.
Color guard, forward, march. Color guard, hold. Reset, arms.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. About face. Color guard, forward, march.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence while we honor all those who are serving and have served in the armed forces and all of our government officials. We have much to be thankful for. Okay, I think we can sit down and get on with the meeting. So as a matter of formality, there are various legal requirements for the reorganization meeting, and those legal requirements have been met. The board, back in December of 2014, established a date for this meeting. Notices of the meeting have been posted at the administration building and each of the education centers at least 24 hours before this meeting. And each member of the school board has been notified by writing of this meeting and the purpose of the meeting. In addition, and very importantly, we have newly elected school board members, some who have served on the board before and some who have not served on the board before. And I have here the official certificates of election from Chester County for Heather McCreary, Lisa Huzzard, Douglas Hughes, William Lakoff, and Pamela Wolf. And I understand that each of the newly elected board members has also taken the oath of office administered by Judge D'Angelo prior to this meeting. So welcome to everyone, and we'll make these certificates of election part of the minutes. And folks are now officially part of the board. So the first point on the agenda is comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public concerning any matter on this initial agenda of the reorganization meeting? Seeing no comments, we'll move on. And the first item of business is the nomination for election of a temporary president. This is a short-lived term of office, namely just until the official president is elected. And those who are eligible are only the holdover board members. Those are the board members who were not up for election in this past November election. So that's Mrs. Parkus, Mrs. Booth, Mr. Fries, and Mr. Kleinfelder. So do we have any nominations for the temporary president?
Mr. Cagle will nominate Mr. Kleinfelder.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, can we have a motion to elect Mr. Kleinfelder as the temporary president?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So Mr. Kleinfelder is now in charge of the meeting.
Sorry, I just have to get my bearings here. Okay, item 6.1, nomination for president. So at this time, I'd like to open any nominations for president for the 2015-2016 school year.
Mr. President, I nominate Mrs. Wolf.
Mr. Rakoff nominates Mrs. Wolf. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Kleinfelder.
Mr. Hughes nominates Mr. Kleinfelter. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, at this time, I guess we'll do a roll call. I guess we can do this one of two ways. We can just do a roll call and you can announce the name of the candidate you would like, or we could do Mrs. Wolf first and Mr. Kleinfelder second. Okay. So, all right. I don't have a list, so
I have the list here, so
He can do that.
Hold the names out.
okay. We're voting on Mrs. Wolf, is that?
no, it'll be you'll announce which candidate you would prefer.
And they'll just say the name of the
All right.
candidate.
So Mrs. Barkus
Mr. Kleinfelder.
and Mrs. Booth
Mrs. Wolf.
and Mr. Freeze
Mrs. Wolf.
and Mrs. Huzzard,
Mrs. Wolf.
Mr. Hughes,
Mr. Kleinfelder.
Mr. Kleinfelder,
Mr. Kleinfelder.
okay, Mr. Lakoff,
Mrs. Wolf.
and Mrs. McCreary
Mrs. Wolf.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Mrs. Wolf.
So it appears that there is a majority for Mrs. Wolf, and therefore Mrs. Wolf is elected as the president for the next school year.
Condolences.
Okay. So now I just,
Yes, musical chairs, now you're in charge.
Just slide the
okay.
chair
Oh, I can just stay here for now.
Yeah.
Have a seat.
Just took everything apart.
Here's your water, Mr. Lookout. Okay, just thank you, everybody, and I will do my best to serve everyone, the students, the staff, the faculty, and administration, and as well as the citizens, to my best of my ability. Okay, 8.1, committee appointments. Oh, I don't want a vice president. 7.1, nominations for vice president. I will open the nominations, and Mr. Cagle then will, as he has done, he will call the roll. Do we have any nominations for vice president?
Mrs. President, I'll nominate Mrs. Booth.
Mrs. Booth for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? Okay. Hearing none,
We can
we will
have
close the,
close the nominations
nomination
and have a...
then we will take a roll call vote. Okay?
We can just have a motion to
Okay,
Mrs.
so
Booth, the vice president.
By acclamation.
do I have a motion to elect Mrs. Booth as vice president?
So moved.
And a second? Second.
Oh, second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So Mrs. Booth will be Vice President. Okay, so item 7.2, election of Vice President, has just been completed. Okay, committee appointments, 8.1. We will do as tradition holds that we will discuss the different committees, who feels which committee is best for them, and we will hopefully, within the next week, get back to everybody as to what committees. 9.1, are there any comments from the board at this time? Seeing none?
I would, Mrs. Wolf.
Mr. Kleinfelter.
So I would like to first thank Mrs. DeLulu and Mr. Stone for their service to the board. You know, it's, I don't want to call it a thankless job, but it is a job that takes a lot of patience, time, and talent to volunteer your time, you know, for the students of the O&J Roberts School District. And I really thank them for the service to the community. I'd also like to thank Mr. Lakoff for being the president last year, and Mrs. Wolf for being the vice president last year, for the time and effort that you put in to moving us forward throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinfelter. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to 10.1, comments from the superintendent of schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. I'd like to echo what Mr. Kleinfelder said. Thank Mr. Lakoff and Mrs. Wolf for their leadership this past year. I'm looking forward to working with the new leadership of the board, as well as our entire board and our new members, Mrs. Huzzard and Ms. McCreary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and this will be an adjournment for this first meeting before we move to our second meeting. Oh, public comments. 11.1, public comments. Any public comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lakoff, or whoever helped me there. Well, then the 12.1 would be Sindai, I would believe, the adjournment, which is an adjournment of this meeting, but somebody's dancing over there. And then to our second. So do I have a motion for an adjournment? Mr. Kleinfelter and Mr. Lakoff second. Thank you.
Now you move.
Now we move. Okay. And then we will be going to the second meeting. Yeah, it used to look like Sindai. Sindai, whatever. I need to make this bigger, Bill. How do I make this bigger? That's why I'm missing things here. Oh, just do that. Okay.
And you can also turn it this way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. So now we are the menage. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and the first item is 2.1, Student Government Executive Council President's Report. Tina?
Thank you, Mrs. President. I will begin my updates for December 7, 2015. I'll begin with high school. The Key Club donated $500 to the Coventry Food Pantry for MADD. Money and canned donations were raised through an advisory contest. Mrs. Jones' advisory and classes alone raised $411 for the food pantry. Canned donations were donated to Fill the Bus on October 23rd. Key Club also celebrated Key Club Week from November 2nd through November 6th. During this time, they raised $50 through the sale of orange steak flags for the Leukemia Research Foundation in honor of Brady Casto. The middle school club's Builders Club and Key Club spelled out Brady's name on campus with the orange flags. Key Club also celebrated with a random act of kindness day, during which members greeted students and staff in the morning by handing out a piece of candy with an RAK, or random act of kindness, taped to it. The club asked the students and staff to pass it on. Anchor Club cordially invites the school board to the Senior Citizens Holiday Tea and Concert on December 15th. OJR choral students will be performing for the annual Senior Citizen Tea and Holiday Concert on Tuesday, December 15th. Anchor Club has collected 83 pairs of shoes for the In Ian's Boots campaign. Also, 3 orchestra students made PMEA District Orchestra. Daniel DiMarino, who was first violin, Lee Magnus, who was cello, and Madeline Simmons, who was also cello. 11 OJR choral students were selected for the prestigious MEEA District 12 choir as a result of auditions on Saturday, November 21st. They were Leah Muffler for soprano 1, Cheyenne Hales and Michelle Antocia for soprano 2, Sierra Fish, Madison Frederick, Caden Roberts for alto 1, Rebecca Emery and Michael Steyer for tenor 1, Daniel DiMarino, Tristan Fish, and Connor Sager for bass 1. The Naturals, OJR's new collegiate-style a cappella group, will be performing as guests of Representative Hennessy at the State Capitol Building in Harrisburg on Tuesday, December 8th at 11 a.m. 2 OJR choral students placed first and second place in the recent Pottstown Rotary Club's annual talent competition. Sarah Helmers, who was first place, and Michael Steyer, who was second place. On December 4th, Daniel DiMarino, OJR choral and orchestral student and resident composer, submitted his string quartet, Scherzo Villano, for the prestigious PMEA All-State Composition Contest. Daniel won first place last year for his string quartet, Nefarioso. Results will be shown in February. OJR choral students will be performing for the annual winter concert on Thursday, December 17th. And now for the middle school. Student Council sponsors Operation Angel, where last year they raised over $4,000 to purchase items for underprivileged kids in the Pottstown area in cooperation with the Pottstown Salvation Army. This year marks the silver anniversary of this event in the middle school. The middle school concert season begins with a 7th grade chorus concert on December 8th at the middle school. The 8th grade chorus concert will be on December 15th at the middle school, and the orchestra concerts will be December 17th at the high school, and the band concert will be January 14th at the high school. And news for all elementary schools. American Education Week was held the week of November 16th, and parents had the opportunity to visit their children's classrooms. They were excited to share in their children's learning activities and to be introduced to the many uses of digital tools and exciting apps. And for East Coventry, the school will be transformed into a winter wonderland during its PTA holiday shop on the evening of December 18th. Families will participate in the holiday-related activities and crafts while enjoying winter music. East Vincent. The East Vincent Wellness Committee and school nurse, Mrs. Canary, adapted the annual turkey trot competition to the first annual Turkey Under Construction Trot. Students celebrated the Thanksgiving holiday throughout the week and were encouraged to eat healthy and get moving. Due to the construction, students wore pedometers and ran in place to track their steps and activity levels. The winning class, Mrs. Crafts, grade 5, celebrated on November 24th with a party featuring a yoga bar with fixings, music, and games. French Creek. The French Creek Handbell Choir spread cheer while visiting residents of the Park House Nursing Home in Royersford on December 1st. Senior Strings, choral, and handbell students in grades 4 through 6 kicked off the holiday season with a winter concert on Thursday, December 3rd. Students in grades kindergarten through 6th grade will be competing in the annual French Creek Spelling Bee on Thursday, December 10th. In North Coventry, the North Coventry 6th grade students and their teachers collected 474 pounds of paper product for the Coventry Food Pantry during their annual Paper Wars. And last but not least, West Vincent. West Vincent students got caught eating healthy. Kids were encouraged to eat healthy snacks, participate actively in recess, wash their hands, and cover their coughs and sneezes. If they did so, they received a ticket, and at the end of the month, the grade with the most tickets won a dance party. The third graders were the winners. The dance will be held during the last week of school before the holiday break. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Tino. Item 2.2, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Christian.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Tino, comprehensive as always, so I'll keep my report to a minimum. Tino mentioned our concerts. They are well underway. All of our concert dates are posted on the district website, many of which are held here in the high school because of the size of the number of our bands, orchestra, and choral performers. A reminder that students and faculty will be off for the holidays from December 24th through January 1. The district will be closed December 24th, 25th, and January 1st. Lastly, this is the month where our students participate in the Hour of Code, which we started 2 years ago. While there's a specific date where they ask students to learn about computer programming, and this was started by Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, our teachers and administration in our buildings have expanded it to an opportunity really through the whole month, and also specifically those last 3 or 4 days before the holiday, when it gets to be a little more challenging to keep our students focused on some of their academics. So it's a great time to incorporate the Hour of Code, which introduces computer programming in a fun way. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mrs. Wolf.
Thank you, Dr. Christian. Item 3, public comment. 3.1, public comment on agenda items. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the item or items on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. No? Okay, seeing none. Item 4, recommended routine matters. 4.1, motion to approve recommended routine matters, which are consent items 4.2 through 4.3.
So moved.
Mr. Kleinfelter and Mr. Freeze. Okay, item 5, approval of... Oh, it would help, wouldn't it? Any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 5, approval of routine matters. 5.1, approval of meeting minutes.
So moved.
Mrs. Booth?
Second.
Mr. Lakoff? Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, board communication. 6.1, board communication. Okay.
I'll handle board communication, Mrs. Wolf. The district did receive 2 inquiries from residents in the North Coventry area regarding the presentation and recommendation that I made November 16th regarding redistricting. Some general questions and some specific questions related to potential transportation routes. I responded to both and reminded those residents that this was a recommendation and there would be further discussion at the January Committee of the Whole, followed by the January 25th board meeting. And then I forwarded those communications to the entire board. Thank you.
Thank you. 8, old business. 8.1. 7, board discussion. 7.1. Is there any board discussion?
Yes, Mrs. Wolf, I actually have an announcement.
Okay.
This weekend, Saturday, December 12th, 2015, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., the OJR Middle School will be hosting the first Lego League tournament. This year's challenge is called Trash Trek. Basically, the students will work on projects that identify a problem in a way that they can handle trash, design an innovative solution to help solve that problem, and then share their problem solutions with others. Also, Video Ray will be on site, I think, unless the pool's still not in service, with their ROV demo in the pool. And just a little bit about the first LEGO League. A lot of times people think about it as, I would call it a build/design software thing, but there's actually more to it than that. There is what they call the robot game. They also have a project, which is a community service project, where they have to go out and try to solve problems, in this case, how to recycle things. And then there's also, First LEGO League has what they call core values. So all the teams are actually judged on each one of the categories individually. So if you have time, it's actually worth coming out to see. The game's always exciting. It draws most of the attention. So that concludes my comments.
Mr. Kleinfelder, what's the date again and time?
It's this Saturday. This Saturday from 9 to 5.
9 to 5, thank you.
No, well, if you come at 5, it may be a little late.
Yeah.
But, start at 9. They usually have what they call plenary rounds early on, and then right around lunchtime things start to heat up. And then sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock they'll have the award ceremony.
And that's in the middle school?
It's in the middle school gym.
Thank you.
We do anticipate the pool to be up and running prior to that.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to remind everyone that the state store is not closed their
Can't hear you.
Just want to remind everybody to reach out to your local legislators that the state still hasn't passed their budget. So it's just another reminder. I'll continue to remind everyone that newly elected board members, feel free to reach out and make sure that your name is out there as well, that we would like to see this get resolved prior to the holiday season here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Any other discussion?
I just want to echo Mr. Free's exhortation to all of us to contact the legislators about the budget, which is 5 months overdue, I believe. They seem to be getting close, and every time they get up to the line, something happens. I think they're voting tonight. That doesn't give me much encouragement. We occasionally will receive email blast from both PSBA and PASBO, the Business Managers Organization, to contact legislators with an email that can be personalized, but it's also pre-printed, so it's very easy. So if I get them, I'm going to forward them to all of you, and please just take a moment to send them out there. And if you have members of the community that you think might assist you by sending them, you can forward those emails to them and let them contact the legislators too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lecoff. Any other board discussion? Okay, moving on to 8, old business, 8.1. Seeing no old business. To 9, new business, approval of personnel matters. These are consent items. 9.1, motion to approve personnel matters. 9.2 through 9.4. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Kleinfelter?
Second.
Mrs. Booth for second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 10, new business. 10.1, approval of student activity clubs and organizations.
So moved.
Mr. Lecoff?
Second.
Mr. Kleinfelter? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're at the second part of the public comment, 11.1, and I shall read that. Information, proposals, statements, and/or questions from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate their name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, we move on to 12. 12.1, board request for information. Is there any request or request for information?
Yes, Mrs. Wolf, this is not necessarily a request for information, but I could hold it for Buildings and Grounds, but I'll forget.
Okay.
In light of the fact that we've had light issues in the pool,
Yes.
I think we want to investigate the possibility of putting some type of dome underneath the lights so that it would capture the glass rather than falling into the pool. I've been told that other pools have things, so I think it's something we probably should look into. It's kind of it costs you money either way. I mean, it cost us money to drain the pool and redo it, and we lost a week of pool time. So I think we should at least investigate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kleinfelter. Any other board requests for information? Okay, 13.1, adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Lakoff.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Booth. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.